Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and I'm inside my house today, as you can see by my surroundings. Most of my orchids are, well, almost all of my orchids are outside, which is typically where I film my videos, and pretty much because I'm growing them out there until we get into the greenhouse during the winter time. But now in summertime, typically I'm not doing videos from inside the house. So the reason that I'm doing that is I want to start sort of a mini series on my bulbophyllum growing inside. So first of all, I'm growing several really cool species, some of which I have gotten from probably about a year ago or so. So it would have been mid-2020 when Bill Toms did a virtual discussion about bulbophyllums here for the Texas Orchid Circuit via Zoom. And afterwards, I purchased a flask of seedlings of Bulbophyllum delatescens, which are colchicine treated to make them have a higher chance for polyploidy. And real quick, for those of you who watch a lot of my videos, you probably know, you've heard me speak about polyploid plants, but basically some plants have naturally an extra set of chromosomes. So you and I are 2N organisms. We have two sets of chromosomes, one from mom, one from dad. Plants also are typically 2N, also one from mom, one from dad, but they can actually double their chromosomes and become 4N, and that happens naturally, occasionally, or artificially through colchicine treatment. 4N plants or 3N plants, which is typically a 2N by a 4N creates a 3N. They can grow faster, they can grow larger, they can grow up larger flowers, like significantly larger flowers. Sometimes they grow a little slower. It really depends on the species. But there's a bunch of advantages to having polyploid plants, especially if you're Bill Toms, who's breeding sort of high quality, unusual plants that he's hoping will be awardable here in the American Orchid Society for himself and for his clients, his customers as well. So if you have the chance to buy colchicine treated versus untreated, I recommend going with the colchicine treated just because the flowers can be larger. So I bought this flask of Bulbophyllum delatescens, and they are growing really nicely. When I turn the camera around, I'll show you. Like I said, they're about a year out of flask. I got a couple of Bulbophyllum romii from him, and that's sort of an unusual new species. They're young plants. I'll show you the one I brought inside because it's not doing well outside. The one outside that's still there is doing really well, so I'm going to leave it, but this one just needs a little TLC. And then I've got some really interesting Papua New Guinea sort of highland, not the super high highland bulbophyllums, but sort of the middle latitude ones. The ones that you can grow in your house fairly easily, but that I can't grow outside because I'll cook them. So let me turn the camera around and I'll show you my little setup here on a windowsill inside. All right, so I am facing my bulbophyllum setup that I am starting here on the inside. I've had these plants sort of just sitting on plates here on the windowsill for a while, and I want it to look nice, at least decent. This isn't stunning or anything, but this will sort of jazz this area up a little bit at least. So I got this little planter here, and then of course I have the LED light on top that you can see there as a background. Just for your information, this is our mud room. We are facing directly north, so the sun would already not be particularly strong coming in here. Then as you can see, there is an oak tree over the top of this little courtyard. So the light coming in isn't very good. But we have the LED, so that's why I have a supplemental light there. And I don't recall what brand this is. A friend of mine actually gave it to me. So, it's 4 or 5 years old. I think I might have to replace it soon. But for now, it'll work, and it has been working. So from right to left, this is my flask, about a year out of flask of Bulbophyllum delicatessens, like I said, from Bill Tom's, and they are colchicine treated. This is a really cool species. When he said he had a flask of this available, I snapped it up. I'm not a big bulbo grower. I don't know that I've made any videos about bulbos. I do have one or two more. They're still outside. They're kind of unusual, including Bulbophyllum denisii, which I grew really well in a terrarium, and now it's just turning into a bush-sized plant without ever blooming, so I don't know what's up with that, but maybe I'll make a video about those guys as well. My other Bill Tom's one, I said I was going right to left, so I'll switch up the order by switching the plants. This is Bulbophyllum romii, and also from Bill Tom's over there in Florida. And for those of you who don't know Bill Tom's is probably the most famous Bulbophyllum grower in the world, perhaps, maybe the most prolific breeder and shower of them. He's got so many new species or new hybrids that he has created, and he's got at least a few species that he's helped to describe, including this one. And this one is super cool, beautiful. I have two of these. Like I said, the counterpart to this one is outside because it's big and fat and happy and healthy. This one, as you can see, the leaves are shriveled and not doing great. They're not bad, but it is putting out two new growths with some new roots just starting on both of them. So this was a perfect time to get this into a new pot. And it is, what happened is it was outside, and the roots of the existing growths I didn't pot it up correctly, I think. And so the roots just didn't take well, and the plant was just kind of hanging on, not doing super poorly. You can see this new growth has a fairly turgid leaf, whereas these guys are floppy. So it's not really poorly off, it just needs a little TLC. I suspect this one will be back in fighting shape here in maybe a month. These ones are really unusual species, not commonly found in the United States. These are the Papua New Guinea ones, and they are, like I said, not heat tolerant. A lot of the Bulbophyllums that people grow commonly in their collections are from really lowland parts of Papua New Guinea or other parts of Southeast Asia, typically, and they like it hot. These guys, not so much. Like I said, they're not so far up the mountains that they are cool growers, like some of the Draculas or some of the high elevation Masdevallias, but these are not going to take our Texas temperatures. So I've been growing these inside. These are sphagnum. I'll water a little bit from the top, but then I'll actually fill up the bottom of this little tray here and let the water sort of percolate up into the media, and it's a really good setup that seems to be working. I've played with Bulbophyllums for so many years with just so little luck. I've tried to use Synthic. My friend Chris, who sent me these divisions, he's over there in Houston, and he just loves this group. And I'll show you what species they are in a second. But he grows his in Synthic, and Synthic is, as you can imagine, a synthetic sphagnum moss. It's really these sort of long snake-like sponges almost, or a cloth material that sort of soaks up water in the same way that sphagnum does and holds it, and in the same way that sphagnum is really hard to get wet again once it's dry. Synthic actually has similar qualities. I haven't had luck with that. I've got a bag of it. It's kind of expensive, so I'm a little frustrated that I haven't had much luck with it, but it is what it is. I've tried with bark, with fine grade orchid bark, and it hasn't worked that well for me. I try as much as I can to get away from sphagnum, but it just, for these guys, it does really well. The plants are super happy and healthy, so I just have to go back to it in this case. So it is what it is. I like to experiment a lot, maybe too much. My plants, if they could speak, they would say, please stop experimenting on us. But it helps you become a better grower. But at some point, when you found a media that works, sometimes you just need to stop the experimenting and start working on improving your culture in other places. And I think that's where I'm at with sphagnum and bulbophyllums. So, real quick, these, if you've seen these in my other videos, these are little baskets of Jim's Purely Organic. Once it gets wet, it turns into this hard. So it starts out as a powder, and then once it gets wet, it turns into this sort of hard, crusty substance that slowly dissolves. So it's actually a slow release fertilizer. And these, especially these high elevation ones, are super sensitive to fertilizer salts. So having these sort of unusual organic ones are probably the way you're going to want to go with this particular group. In the same way that Mazdavalias from sort of the high elevations of South America are very sensitive to salts and need really pure water, these guys are the same. In fact, they kind of occupy a similar niche. These guys occupy a similar niche in Southeast Asia as some of the Mazdavalias do over there in South America, in the New World. And same with the Lepanthes. And you can see a lot of similarities in the flowers, and hopefully I'll be able to show you some of those here in the very near future. So, and I use rainwater. Everything that I use has rainwater, so this is a group, while you can use tap water of just about any quality for your Cattleyas and Catasetums, these guys are going to need special water. These ones, maybe not so much these ones, the low elevation ones, but if you have it, use it. These guys definitely need rainwater as opposed to poor tap water. So this is Longa caudatum, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these, but I do encourage you to look up the bloom. This one here is Xanthoacrum. You can see I've taken these, they're so small that I've taken these other tags from other plants and cut them in half to, so you don't have this giant towering tag sticking out that dwarfs the actual plant itself. This is Longa labris. And this one is Dilocaglottis. Excuse me, Dilicoglottis. So this is a group that I'm not super familiar with, and I'm really excited about growing a new group, especially one that doesn't take up much space and is immune to our seasonal swings in temperature here in central Texas, because it'll be inside. So it'll be, it's close to a window, so in the coldest days of winter, it'll still be kind of chilly in here. And then the hottest days of summer, I'm sure there's heat coming through, but it's probably not that bad. But in any case, I'm hoping that these little guys will start blooming for me just about all year round. You can see a new growth here. I was hoping it was going to be a spike, but it's a new growth. And again, I'm going to stick my big finger in here just for a size reference. Here is another one way in the back. And then this one is in a large pot. Not because it needs it, it's just because that's what I had available. If I zoom in on this guy here, you can see a new growth coming out there. I really hope that's a flower spike. We'll see. Y'all will be the first to know if it is. So anyway, that's my introduction to this new series, and I will give somewhat regular updates. I probably won't be as regular as, let's say, William Green and his weekly updates of his collection, but maybe once a month I'll throw in a video of how these guys are doing. So far they've grown pretty quickly, and I suspect that they will continue, and I'm really hoping for blooms. I've said that already. I really want to emphasize that though. Oh, and in case you're wondering, this is just egg crate cut to the size of this little planter here, which is, I literally just bought at Home Depot like an hour ago. And it does hold water on the bottom, so that's the purpose of this, so that I can water from the top here with these guys, it'll catch water and it doesn't get all over the place. I've got some bricks holding it all together underneath, so nothing fancy. I suspect that this spot here, if this area gets full, I'm gonna be like, oh man, this is a waste of space. I need to fill it. But we're not quite there yet. Anyway, have a good weekend. See ya.